The afternoon sun gleamed against the towering white marble facade of the Hotel Royal, casting long shadows across the grand entrance. Impeccably dressed bellhops attended to luxury cars pulling up one by one, opening doors with practiced grace, welcoming guests with subtle nods and formal smiles. Inside, the grand lobby exuded an air of refinement. Plush velvet carpets muffled footsteps, and crystal chandeliers hung like floating jewels from the vaulted ceilings. Guests whispered over cups of afternoon tea in high-backed chairs, their voices blending with the soft clinks of fine china and silverware. Behind the polished mahogany reception desk, Ethan, the head receptionist, observed it all with a practiced eye. His suit was perfectly tailored, his hair slicked back with not a strand out of place. He wore a small, confident smile, a look that exuded warmth to the right guests, a look honed over years of catering to the elite who frequented the hotel. When the grand glass doors slid open, Ethan noticed a man step inside. The new arrival was tall and lean, his dark skin contrasting with a crisp, white button-down shirt tucked into dark jeans. His shoes were practical but worn, and a simple black backpack hung from his shoulder, looking out of place among the designer luggage and couture dresses around him. His gaze swept across the room with a calm but observant curiosity, taking in the grandeur with an understated ease that didn't fit the usual wealthy clientele. Ethan's smile faltered slightly, his eyes narrowed as he sized up the man, silently noting the simplicity of his attire. It wasn't uncommon for Ethan to make quick judgments about guests based on appearance, a habit developed after years of distinguishing between guests who belonged and those who did not. To Ethan, this man seemed to fall into the latter category. The man approached the reception desk, moving with a steady, confident stride that seemed almost inappropriate for someone so simply dressed. He came to a stop in front of Ethan, maintaining polite eye contact. "Good afternoon," he greeted with a warm, even tone. "I have a reservation." Ethan's eyebrow arched ever so slightly as he adjusted his stance. "Name?" he asked, barely masking his skepticism. "Lucas King," the man replied, his voice calm and steady. Ethan's fingers moved over the keyboard, typing in the name while glancing up occasionally. There was something about the man's presence that felt unshakable, as though he was completely at ease in a place where he seemed out of place. But it was Lucas's confidence that rubbed Ethan the wrong way. His intuition told him that something was off. The search results appeared, and Ethan's eyes widened slightly. Lucas King, Presidential Suite. For a moment, he froze, quickly double-checking the details. It was, indeed, a reservation for the Presidential Suite, one of the hotel's most exclusive and expensive rooms reserved only for foreign dignitaries, celebrities, and high-profile business tycoons. Still, Ethan couldn't shake his doubt. He looked up at Lucas, his expression turning skeptical. "I'm sorry, Mr. King," he began, with an edge of formality. "Are you certain this reservation is correct? The Presidential Suite is quite exclusive." Lucas's expression remained polite, though there was a subtle firmness in his eyes. "Yes," he answered, his tone as steady as before. "I'm aware. The reservation should be under my name." Ethan forced a tight-lipped smile, barely disguising his distaste. "One moment, please," he said, excusing himself under the guise of needing further verification. He walked over to a cluster of his colleagues, including Sophia, a junior receptionist, and began whispering. Sophia's eyes widened as Ethan pointed discreetly towards Lucas, who waited patiently at the desk. Her gaze flickered between the newcomer and Ethan, her expression a mixture of curiosity and concern. A few others exchanged glances, some stifling laughs, as if the idea of this man staying in the Presidential Suite was nothing short of a joke. Returning to the desk, Ethan's posture was stiffer, his voice taking on a slightly condescending tone. "I'm afraid we'll need to verify your payment method before we can proceed." "Sir." Without a word, Lucas pulled a sleek, platinum credit card from his wallet and handed it over. It was the kind of card that only the very wealthy possessed, a detail that did not go unnoticed by Ethan. Swallowing his surprise, he took the card and disappeared into the back office to run the payment. In the back room, Ethan stared at the screen, waiting for the transaction to go through, almost hoping for an error message. But the transaction cleared seamlessly. Lucas King was, in fact, financially sound and had paid in full for the presidential suite. The realization didn't sit well with Ethan. His pride felt bruised, his judgment called into question. He returned to the front desk with the card, his face pale but composed. "Very well, Mr. King. Your suite is ready," he said, the strain in his voice barely noticeable. "The bellhop will take your bags." But Lucas raised a hand, his tone gentle but firm. "No need. I can manage," he replied, slipping the card back into his wallet and slinging the backpack over his shoulder. He offered Ethan a small nod, then turned and walked towards the elevators. As he moved through the lobby, whispers filled the air, staff members exchanged incredulous looks. Guests glanced up from their tea, and Ethan felt an uneasy prickling sensation. Lucas's calm composure lingered in his mind long after the elevator doors closed. Something about this man felt different, but he couldn't place why. Unbeknownst to Ethan, this unassuming guest was far more significant than he could imagine. The man he had treated with barely concealed disdain was about to turn Ethan's world and the entire hotel's reputation upside down. The atmosphere inside the Hotel Royale gradually returned to its usual hum of activity. But an undercurrent of unease rippled through the staff. The opulence and elegance of the lobby provided a stark contrast to the tension building among the employees. To the average guest, it was business as usual. But among the hotel staff, Lucas King's presence had already become the day's central topic. Ethan, the head receptionist, returned to his post with a forced smile. Though the frustration simmering under his polite exterior was unmistakable, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about Lucas. The sight of the man standing confidently in the presidential suite elevator, unbothered by his attire or lack of luggage, felt like an insult to everything Ethan thought he understood about their elite clientele. Sophia, a young receptionist with a penchant for curiosity, noticed Ethan's discomfort and sidled up beside him. "Was he actually checked into the presidential suite?" she whispered, glancing nervously toward the elevators where Lucas had disappeared. Ethan tightened his jaw, keeping his gaze fixed on the computer screen in front of him. "Yes, but it doesn't make any sense. A man dressed like that, waltzing into one of the most exclusive suites as if he belongs there. I don't buy it." Sophia bit her lip, unsure how to respond, but his card cleared, right? And he did seem polite. Ethan gave a dismissive wave. "There's something suspicious about him. I'm not taking any chances." He turned to the phone on his desk, his fingers hovering over the number for security. "I think it's best if we check this out further, just to be safe." Sophia's eyes widened. "You're calling security?" "Yes. Look, Sophia, we have standards here. Our guests expect a certain level of exclusivity. If something goes wrong, it's my responsibility." He dialed the number with a quick jab, and within moments, 2 security guards arrived in the lobby. The 2 guards, Harris, a seasoned veteran known for his no-nonsense approach, and Calvin, a younger recruit eager to prove himself, stood at attention as Ethan filled them in on his suspicions. "There's a guest in the presidential suite who doesn't seem to belong here," he said, keeping his voice low. "He cleared the payment, but something about him doesn't feel right. I want you to check in on him. Make sure everything is as it should be." Harris raised an eyebrow, exchanging a glance with Calvin. "Sir, are you sure about this? We don't usually." "Yes, I'm sure," Ethan interrupted. "This is about protecting the reputation of the hotel." With a nod, Harris and Calvin made their way to the elevator, pressing the button for the top floor where the presidential suite was located. Their movements were calm, professional, but a spark of curiosity flickered in Calvin's eyes. For him, it was unusual to be dispatched over something as vague as a suspicious guest, especially in a place as high-end as Hotel Royale. Up on the top floor, the quiet was palpable. The thick carpeting absorbed their footsteps, and the air felt dense, almost charged. Harris took the lead, rapping sharply on the suite's door. There was a moment of silence, and then the door opened. Lucas stood in the doorway, his expression one of polite curiosity. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" he asked, his voice steady and calm. Harris cleared his throat, maintaining a stoic face. "Sir, We've had some concerns raised about your stay here. We're going to have to ask you to vacate the premises until we can verify a few things. This is just a precaution. Lucas's expression remained neutral, but his eyes sharpened slightly. Concerns? I provided all necessary identification and my reservation was confirmed. Be that as it may, Harris replied, shifting his stance. We still need to ask you to step out. If you refuse, we'll have to escort you. A flicker of something disappointment perhaps crossed Lucas's face, but he stepped back, raising his hand slightly. Very well, he said, his voice as calm as before. I'll pack my things. Harris and Calvin watched as Lucas calmly picked up his belongings, a single black backpack, and slung it over his shoulder. He stepped into the hallway, making no effort to argue or protest, which only served to heighten Harris' discomfort. The security guards flanked him, guiding him toward the elevator with an air of professionalism, but neither could ignore the gnawing feeling that this situation felt wrong. Back in the lobby, Ethan's eyes followed them as they approached, a feeling of triumph creeping into his chest. Guests glanced up from their conversations as Lucas, escorted by security, walked toward the exit. Some whispered to each other, intrigued by the scene unfolding before them. As Lucas reached the hotel's front doors, he paused and turned, looking directly at Ethan with a calm, steady gaze. His eyes, usually mild, held a new intensity, a sense of resignation mingled with something deeper, like disappointment. Thank you for your hospitality, Lucas said, his voice steady yet pointed, carrying a subtle edge of irony. With that, he turned and walked out, the glass doors closing behind him. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding, his heart pounding. He had acted swiftly, decisively. He had done what he thought was necessary to protect the hotel. Yet as he returned to the reception desk, a shadow of doubt flickered in his mind, casting a faint unease over his victory. Sophia approached him, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan, are you sure that was the right thing to do? Ethan gave a quick, defensive shake of his head. I did what was best. If he was really supposed to be here, he'll come back with proper proof. But as he watched the last traces of Lucas disappear beyond the glass doors, Ethan couldn't quite shake the creeping feeling of doubt. And little did he know, the consequences of his hasty decision were only just beginning. After Lucas King's quiet exit, the grand lobby of Hotel Royale returned to its usual elegant murmur. But a tension lingered in the air. Guests resumed their conversations, and the staff carried on with their routines. Yet those who had witnessed the incident couldn't ignore the unease that clung to them. Ethan, standing stiffly at his post, tried to shake off the pang of doubt creeping into his mind. I did what was necessary, he told himself, but despite his attempts to convince himself, the satisfaction from earlier began to feel hollow. Sophia, who had witnessed Lucas's calm exit, watched Ethan with a mixture of worry and guilt. She felt the weight of her own complicity pressing down on her. After all, she hadn't spoken up, hadn't questioned Ethan's decision. She moved through her tasks distractedly, her mind lingering on the man's final look, a look of profound disappointment that seemed to pierce right through her. In the back offices, whispers had already started to spread among the staff. Many questioned what had just happened, exchanging uneasy glances and hurried murmurs. Was the man an important guest? Was he who he claimed to be? And what would be the consequences if he was? Charles Reynolds, the general manager, received the news shortly after Lucas's departure. He sat behind his massive oak desk, listening to Ethan's recounting of the events. His expression was hard to read, a mixture of impatience and an undercurrent of worry. Ethan, Reynolds began, steepling his fingers and fixing Ethan with a stern gaze. Are you telling me that you evicted a guest from our presidential suite based solely on his appearance and a gut feeling? Ethan shifted uncomfortably, feeling the accusation in Reynolds's tone. Sir, he didn't look the part. No luggage, no designer clothes. He just didn't fit in with the kind of guests we usually see here. Reynolds leaned back in his chair, his gaze cold and calculating. Let me remind you, Ethan, that appearances can be deceiving. You're supposed to uphold our reputation for service, not judge guests by their clothing. If this comes back to haunt us. He trailed off, the weight of his words hanging ominously in the air. Ethan swallowed hard, a knot of regret beginning to form in his stomach. I thought I was doing what was best for the hotel, he muttered, but the words sounded weak, even to him. Reynolds sighed, rubbing his temples. I suggest you hope that nothing more comes of this. For everyone's sake. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Meanwhile, outside the hotel, Lucas King had walked away from the building with the same calm confidence he'd maintained since his arrival. The doubt and judgment cast upon him by the hotel staff hadn't been new. He'd encountered bias countless times before. But today, it had struck a deeper chord. As he walked down the bustling city street, he pulled out his phone and dialed a familiar number. Eleanor, he said once the line connected. His voice was steady, though a trace of irritation lingered. It's time. I'm going to need you at the hotel. On the other end, Eleanor Pierce, the CEO of King Enterprises and one of Lucas's closest allies. Didn't miss a beat. What happened? They judged me before they knew who I was. Lucas replied, a tinge of disappointment creeping into his voice. I think it's time for a lesson. A thorough one. Eleanor's tone was sharp with determination. Understood. I'll be there within the hour. We'll make sure they understand the consequences. Hanging up, Lucas allowed himself a moment to absorb the bustling life around him. Hotel Royale was his. He had worked tirelessly to build the reputation and elegance that the establishment now enjoyed. And yet, the staff had made him feel like an outsider in his own creation. This was no longer just about an isolated incident, it was about correcting the toxic culture that had quietly seeped into his hotel. He returned to the Royale not as an anonymous guest, but as the powerful figure behind every decision, every detail, and every success the hotel had achieved. The knowledge that his presence would soon shake the entire staff gave him a renewed sense of purpose. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Inside the Royale, the calm was about to be broken. When the hotel's double doors swung open again, in walked a striking woman with jet black hair, pulled back in a severe bun. She was dressed in a sharp, tailored suit, her gaze unwavering and severe. As she strode into the lobby, her heels clicked against the marble floors, a rhythmic beat that caught the attention of everyone nearby. Eleanor's presence immediately shifted the atmosphere. She carried an air of authority that demanded attention, and the staff instinctively straightened up, sensing the seriousness she exuded. They didn't know who she was, but it was clear she was someone who mattered. Eleanor approached the reception desk, where Ethan had been watching her arrival with wide eyes. His pulse quickened as she stopped directly in front of him, her gaze icy and assessing. Mr. Ethan Grant, I presume? She asked, her voice smooth but laced with steel. Yes, ma'am, he stammered, his face flushing under her gaze. Good. You'll be explaining yourself soon enough. She motioned to the hotel manager, who had hurried to join them. Charles Reynolds, correct? Reynolds nodded, his expression uneasy. Yes. Ms. Pierce, I'm the general manager. Good. Gather your staff in the conference room. We'll be having a discussion about this morning's incident. Her tone left no room for questions or excuses. Ethan felt his stomach twist as he exchanged a horrified glance with Sophia, who looked equally pale, as the staff filed into the conference room under Eleanor's watchful eye. An air of dread settled over them. The weight of their actions, which they had initially dismissed, now loomed large and undeniable. Blank. Underscore. Blank. In the conference room, the employees sat in tense silence, their gazes fixed on Eleanor as she stood at the head of the table. Arms crossed, her gaze swept over them, each one feeling the full force of her scrutiny. Let me be very clear, she began, her voice resonant and unyielding. You have just humiliated and dismissed Mr. Lucas King, the man who owns this hotel and everything in it. A stunned silence filled the room. Eyes widened, jaws dropped, and a murmur of disbelief rippled through the employees. Ethan's face drained of color, and he slumped in his seat, his earlier confidence crumbling to dust. Eleanor continued, her voice calm yet scathing. This hotel was built on values of respect, excellence, and inclusivity. Yet today, you all displayed judgment, arrogance, and a complete disregard for those very values. She turned her gaze to Ethan, her tone sharper. You, Mr. Grant, in particular, took it upon yourself to judge a guest your employer based solely on his appearance. This goes against every principle this establishment is supposed to stand for. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. I didn't know. Not knowing isn't an excuse. Eleanor interrupted, her gaze icy. It's your responsibility to treat every guest with the same level of respect. Not to pass judgment based on your assumptions. She let her words hang in the air, allowing the weight of them to sink in. Turning to address the entire room, she continued, starting immediately. Every staff member here will undergo a series of training sessions on bias awareness, empathy, and inclusivity. This isn't a punishment. It's a chance to recognize the flaws in your thinking and to correct them. If anyone feels unwilling to participate in these changes, they are free to seek employment elsewhere. The room was deathly quiet, the staff absorbing the gravity of Eleanor's words. Ethan's mind raced, his earlier confidence replaced by a gnawing fear that he had jeopardized his career and tarnished the hotel's reputation. As Eleanor concluded her speech, the door opened, and in walked Lucas King himself. He looked at each of the staff members, his gaze calm but penetrating. The room held its collective breath, waiting for his words. I built this hotel to be a place where everyone is treated with dignity and respect, Lucas said, his voice steady. Today, I felt like a stranger in my own establishment. But I believe in second chances, in growth, and in learning from mistakes. His gaze rested on Ethan, then shifted to the rest of the team. This is a moment for reflection. Take it seriously, or you may find yourselves in places where respect and dignity aren't part of the job description. With that, he turned and exited, Eleanor following behind. The conference room fell silent as the weight of their actions settled heavily on the staff. Each realizing that they had been given a chance, perhaps the only one they'd ever received, to change, to grow, and to make things right. The following morning, the usually calm and polished environment of Hotel Royale felt tense and uneasy. The grandeur of the lobby, with its marble floors, shimmering chandeliers, and plush furnishings, seemed overshadowed by the staff's nervous energy. Whispers floated through the hallways as employees exchanged worried glances and speculated about the changes that lay ahead. In the staff room, Ethan sat hunched over a coffee cup, his mind a whirlwind of regret and shame. The memories of Lucas King's calm yet cutting words played over and over in his head. A painful reminder of his actions. The reality of having misjudged the owner of the hotel his employer left him feeling hollow, as though everything he had built his career on had crumbled in a single moment. Sophia entered the room, her face pale and eyes downcast. She paused when she saw Ethan, unsure whether to sit beside him or keep her distance. They had been friends, or at least friendly colleagues. But the events of the previous day had shaken that foundation. After a moment of hesitation, she took a seat next to him. Ethan, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't believe I didn't think, I never imagined we'd be here. Ethan nodded slowly, unable to meet her eyes. I know, I thought I was protecting the hotel's reputation. I thought I was doing the right thing. He let out a shaky breath, his voice filled with regret. But I was wrong, so wrong. Sophia bit her lip, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. It wasn't just you, she admitted softly. I could have spoken up. I could have said something, but I didn't. She sighed, her expression pained. I went along with it because I thought you were right. Now I realize how wrong that was. The silence between them grew heavy as they both absorbed the weight of their actions. They had not only judged Lucas unfairly but had also jeopardized their careers and the reputation of the hotel they had worked so hard to maintain. A sudden voice interrupted their thoughts. All staff members are to report to the conference room immediately, announced Charles Reynolds, the hotel's general manager, his voice echoing through the corridors via the intercom. Ethan and Sophia exchanged nervous glances before standing and making their way to the conference room, each step feeling heavier than the last. Blank. Blank. The conference room was filled with anxious staff members, their faces mirroring a mixture of shame and dread. At the front of the room stood Charles Reynolds, his expression stern and unyielding, with Eleanor Pierce by his side. The memory of her sharp reprimand from the previous day still lingered in everyone's minds, amplifying the tension in the room. Eleanor began, her voice calm but firm. Yesterday was a wake-up call. The events that unfolded exposed a side of this hotel that should never have existed. But we're here not only to address the mistakes made but to ensure that those mistakes never happen again. She paused, letting her words sink in. The staff members shifted uncomfortably, knowing that they had all played some part in the incident. Whether directly or indirectly, we will be implementing mandatory training for everyone here. Eleanor continued, her gaze sweeping across the room. Bias awareness, empathy, cultural sensitivity, these aren't just words. They are essential values that every employee of Hotel Royale must embody. From this day forward, there will be no exceptions. Charles took a step forward, his expression uncharacteristically grave. Each of you will participate in these training sessions, he said. This isn't about punishment, it's about growth, about ensuring that we never repeat the same mistakes. However, for those who fail to meet the standards we're setting, there will be consequences. He turned his gaze to Ethan, who felt the weight of his words like a physical blow. He knew he was one of the main reasons the hotel was in this position. The shame he felt was overwhelming. But he also recognized that this was his chance, his only chance to prove he could change. Eleanor's gaze shifted to Sophia, who flinched slightly but held her ground. Ms. Carter, Eleanor addressed her, you played a part in this incident as well. Your silence allowed a situation to escalate that should never have occurred. But silence is not a defense. We expect you to take responsibility and use this as an opportunity to learn and improve. Sophia nodded, her face flushed with shame. I understand, Ms. Pierce, she replied quietly. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. Eleanor's eyes softened slightly as she looked around the room. I know that this is difficult, she said, her voice gentler. We all make mistakes, but what matters is how we choose to move forward from them. This is a time for reflection, growth, and commitment to a better future. If you're willing to work for it, you will have a place here. But if you can't meet the standards we're setting, then this may not be the right place for you. She let her words hang in the air, giving everyone a moment to absorb the weight of what she was saying. The room was silent, the gravity of the situation settling heavily on each person present. Blank. Over the following days, the changes began in earnest. Ethan found himself attending bias awareness training led by Dr. Angela Brooks, an expert in corporate culture and empathy training. The sessions were intense and challenging, forcing him to confront his own prejudices and assumptions. One day, during a particularly emotional session, Dr. Brooks asked a question that cut through Ethan's defenses. Why do you think you felt the need to judge someone based on their appearance? Ethan, she asked, her gaze steady. Ethan hesitated, feeling exposed under her scrutiny. I don't know, he replied, his voice shaky. Maybe I thought I was doing what was best for the hotel. Maybe I thought I knew what kind of people fit in here and what kind didn't. Dr. Brooks nodded, her expression thoughtful. And do you see now that those assumptions, those snap judgments, can cause harm? That they can lead you to make mistakes that affect not just your job, but the lives of others? Ethan swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion. Yes, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I see that now. Meanwhile, Sophia threw herself into her work with renewed determination. She attended every training session, took notes diligently, and sought feedback from her peers. The experience had shaken her, but it had also ignited a desire to prove that she could be better. She wanted to be part of a culture that valued empathy and understanding over judgment and bias. The rest of the staff also felt the impact of the new training programs. Housekeepers, bellhops, receptionists, and even the security team were engaged in workshops and discussions, all working toward a common goal: to create a hotel environment that upheld the values of respect and inclusivity. As the days passed, the change within Hotel Royale became noticeable. The staff began to interact with each other and with guests in a way that felt more genuine, more respectful. The polished facade of the hotel no longer hid a culture of judgment and prejudice but instead reflected a newfound dedication to equality and understanding. Eleanor and Lucas observed the transformation with cautious optimism. They knew that true change took time. But they were encouraged by the progress they saw. The hotel was slowly becoming the kind of place Lucas had always envisioned, a place where every guest, regardless of their appearance or background, was treated with dignity and respect. One afternoon, Lucas was walking through the lobby when he saw Ethan at the reception desk. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, Ethan froze, unsure of what to do. Taking a deep breath, Ethan approached Lucas, his heart pounding. "Mr. King," he began, his voice trembling slightly. I wanted to apologize for everything. I know words aren't enough. But I want you to know that I'm trying. I'm doing my best to learn. To change." Lucas regarded him silently for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded, a faint hint of approval in his gaze. "That's all I ask, Ethan," he replied. "Growth isn't about never making mistakes. It's about learning from them and choosing to do better. Keep at it." Ethan felt a surge of relief and gratitude, his chest loosening as though a weight had been lifted. This was his chance, his opportunity to make things right. Blank. Blank. As the sun set over the city, the Hotel Royal stood tall, its grandeur restored not just in appearance but in spirit. The journey toward change had only just begun. But the staff was committed, each person dedicated to creating a place where everyone could feel welcome, respected, and valued. Lucas King watched from a distance, his heart warmed by the transformation taking root within his hotel. He knew there would still be challenges ahead, moments of resistance, and setbacks, but for the first time, he felt hopeful that the Hotel Royal could truly live up to the vision he had always had for it. And as the lights in the lobby flickered on, illuminating the grand entrance, he felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. The journey of redemption was never easy, but it was always worth it. In the weeks following Lucas King's address to the staff, Hotel Royal began to transform in ways that were both visible and subtle. The once rigid, rule-bound culture started to soften as employees embraced their training and sought to create a warmer, more welcoming environment. But while some staff members were quick to adapt, others found themselves grappling with the demands of change, unsure if they could live up to the new standards. At the heart of these efforts was Ethan, the head receptionist whose initial misjudgment had sparked a chain reaction throughout the hotel. Every day, he arrived at work early, preparing himself mentally for the challenges ahead. He attended every training session, took extensive notes, and even practiced new techniques with his fellow team members. But he often found himself struggling, wrestling with old habits and ingrained beliefs that didn't change overnight. One morning, Ethan arrived at the hotel to find a line of guests waiting at the front desk. He immediately noticed a man in simple clothing, standing near the back of the line, who seemed hesitant to approach. In the past, Ethan might have unconsciously dismissed him as unimportant. Today, however, he reminded himself of Lucas's words and waved the man over with a welcoming smile. "Good morning, sir," Ethan greeted, his tone warm and sincere. "How can I assist you today?" The man's face brightened with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I just wanted some information about the dining options here." Ethan took his time explaining the hotel's various dining options, providing recommendations with genuine interest. The conversation felt different, more meaningful than his usual scripted interactions with guests. When the man thanked him and left, Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment, a small step toward becoming the person he wanted to be. Across the lobby, Sophia watched the exchange, feeling both pride and a touch of envy. Ethan's growth had been evident, and while she, too, was making strides, she often doubted her own progress. She had always been efficient and professional, but the recent changes forced her to confront her own biases and assumptions, something she found deeply uncomfortable. Later that day, she confided her feelings to Dr. Angela Brooks during a one-on-one training session. Dr. Brooks had become a guiding figure in the hotel, conducting workshops and coaching individual staff members through their personal growth journeys. "I just don't know if I'm capable of truly changing," Sophia admitted. her voice laced with doubt. I've always prided myself on professionalism. But I realize now that I might have been distant, maybe even unkind without realizing it. Dr. Brooks regarded her with a thoughtful expression. Change isn't about becoming a completely different person, Sophia. It's about refining who you already are, becoming more self-aware, and making conscious choices. The fact that you're even questioning this shows that you're already on the right path. Sophia nodded slowly, feeling a spark of hope. I want to be better, she said, not just for my career, but for myself. That's all you need to keep moving forward. Dr. Brooks replied with an encouraging smile. Growth takes time, and setbacks are part of the process. What matters is that you're committed. Blank. Blank. Over the next few weeks, Hotel Royale implemented changes that were impossible to ignore. Every staff member attended mandatory weekly sessions on empathy and cultural sensitivity. These sessions were led by Dr. Brooks and other experts, who used real-life scenarios and open discussions to help the staff confront their biases and understand the importance of respectful interactions. In addition to the training, Lucas introduced a feedback system that allowed guests to anonymously rate their experiences with the staff. This system provided employees with constructive feedback and highlighted areas where they could improve. The feedback wasn't always easy to hear, especially for those who had once prided themselves on their perfect performances. But it proved invaluable in the pursuit of genuine transformation. Ethan was among the first to experience the benefits of this new system. One evening, a guest left a glowing review about his kindness and patience during a check-in process. Reading the review filled Ethan with a sense of pride he hadn't felt in years. He realized that treating guests with warmth and respect was far more rewarding than simply following protocol. Encouraged by the positive feedback, Ethan approached his colleague, Jack, who had been openly skeptical of the new changes. Jack had been with the hotel for a long time, and he often grumbled about the training sessions, claiming that they were a waste of time. Jack, Ethan began, choosing his words carefully. I know the training might feel unnecessary, but I've seen the difference it can make. The guests notice when we go the extra mile. It's not just about following rules, it's about making people feel valued. Jack sighed, rolling his eyes. Look, Ethan, you're new to this whole sensitivity stuff. I've been doing this job for years. Guests come and go, they don't remember our names. All they care about is the luxury and the amenities. Ethan hesitated, then nodded slowly. Maybe that's true for some, but I think we can change that. I mean, if we want the hotel to stand out, shouldn't it be because we make people feel welcome? Jack didn't respond, but Ethan sensed a shift in his expression, a flicker of consideration. It was a small victory, but one that gave Ethan hope. Blank. As the hotel continued to evolve, Lucas King observed the progress with a mixture of satisfaction and caution. He spent more time interacting with the staff, joining training sessions, and even chatting with guests to understand their experiences. He wanted to ensure that the changes taking place were not just superficial adjustments but a genuine shift in the hotel's culture. One afternoon, Lucas invited the entire staff to a meeting in the conference room. The atmosphere was different from the tense, fearful gathering that had taken place weeks before. Now, there was a sense of openness and unity, a collective understanding that they were all in this journey together. Thank you all for your hard work and dedication over the past few weeks. Lucas began, his gaze sweeping across the room. I know that change is never easy, and I appreciate the effort each of you has put into embracing our new values. We're building something special here, something that goes beyond luxury and status. The staff listened intently, many of them nodding in agreement. Lucas's vision had become their own, and they were beginning to see the value in creating a hotel that truly welcomed everyone. But remember, Lucas continued, his tone serious, this is only the beginning. A culture of respect and inclusion doesn't happen overnight. It requires constant effort, accountability, and a willingness to reflect on our actions. I have faith that we can continue down this path, but it's up to each one of you to keep that commitment. As the meeting ended, the staff felt a renewed sense of purpose. They understood that the journey they were on wasn't just about changing the hotel's reputation but about redefining what it meant to be part of the Hotel Royale family. blank, underscore, blank. In the days that followed, Ethan and Sophia began to notice a shift in the way they interacted with each other and with their colleagues. There was less judgment, more patience, and a sense of camaraderie that hadn't been present before. They found themselves working together to solve problems, supporting one another during difficult moments, and celebrating each other's successes. Ethan, who had once felt isolated in his position of authority, now felt like part of a team. He no longer viewed himself as the gatekeeper of the hotel's standards but as someone who could help create a welcoming environment for everyone, regardless of their background or appearance. Sophia, too, experienced a profound change. She had always been focused on efficiency and professionalism, but now she found joy in connecting with guests on a personal level. She listened to their stories, empathized with their challenges, and went out of her way to make their stay memorable. Her transformation wasn't immediate, and there were moments of self-doubt. But she pushed forward, determined to become a better version of herself. The guests began to take notice, leaving comments and reviews that praised the warmth and kindness of the staff. Hotel Royale was no longer just a place of luxury, it had become a place where people felt valued and respected. Blank, underscore, blank. As the sun set over the city, casting a warm glow over the hotel, Lucas stood in the lobby, watching his staff with pride. He knew that they still had a long way to go, that the journey of redemption was ongoing. But he was heartened by the progress they had made. Hotel Royale was finally beginning to live up to the vision he had always held, a place where everyone, regardless of who they were, felt at home. And as he turned to leave, he felt a quiet sense of fulfillment, knowing that this journey was only just beginning. Together, they would continue to build a legacy of compassion, respect, and true hospitality. The changes at Hotel Royale were undeniable. And as the weeks passed, a new atmosphere filled the grand hallways and lavish suites. The staff were no longer simply going through the motions of hospitality, they were engaging, connecting, and challenging their own assumptions. But as progress was made on the surface, deeper internal battles were being waged, particularly for Lucas King, who was no stranger to prejudice. One evening, after an exhaustive day of training sessions and guest interactions, Lucas found himself alone in his temporary office on the top floor of the hotel. The view of the city lights below was stunning, yet he barely noticed it. Memories of his own encounters with bias, from childhood through adulthood, replayed in his mind, each one like a scar that had faded but never fully healed. Growing up, Lucas had often felt out of place in spaces where he was judged before he even opened his mouth. His education, his accomplishments, and his hard work had often been overshadowed by his appearance. As the son of a working-class family, he had been taught resilience early on, and that resilience had helped him rise through the ranks to eventually own one of the most prestigious hotel chains in the country. Yet the sting of those early experiences remained. They were part of the reason he had been so driven to establish his hotels as places of true equality, where every guest would feel welcomed and respected, no matter who they were or where they came from. But seeing how far even his own staff had to go in understanding this principle left him disheartened. And a familiar, painful doubt crept in. Was true change possible? Could people really leave behind their prejudices, even if they had been taught to think a certain way for most of their lives? As he sat lost in thought, there was a soft knock at his door. He looked up to see Dr. Angela Brooks, the diversity and inclusion consultant who had become a vital part of the hotel's transformation. She offered him a gentle smile, her presence grounding him in the moment. "May I join you?" she asked, gesturing to the seat across from him. Lucas nodded, grateful for her company. Dr. Brooks had not only been a driving force in the training programs but also a source of insight and encouragement for the entire staff. She had a way of making people feel seen and heard, qualities that Lucas deeply respected. As she sat down, she studied his face for a moment, her gaze compassionate. "You look like you've got a lot on your mind," she said gently. Lucas sighed, running a hand over his face. "I suppose I do," he admitted. "The progress has been promising. But sometimes I wonder, will it ever really be enough? Can we truly change the way people think and treat one another?" Dr. Brooks leaned back, folding her hands in her lap. "Change is a long and winding road. she said thoughtfully. But every step we take is a step in the right direction. It's not about erasing bias overnight, that's impossible. It's about fostering awareness, encouraging empathy, and creating an environment where everyone is held accountable for how they treat others. Lucas listened, her words resonating deeply. He had always believed in the power of perseverance. But he hadn't anticipated how difficult it would be to face his own memories of prejudice while trying to guide others through the same journey. You know, Dr. Brooks continued, I've often found that confronting our own experiences of bias can be the hardest part. It brings up old wounds, memories we'd rather forget, but those memories can also be a source of strength. They remind us of what we're fighting for. Lucas nodded slowly, feeling a surge of determination. You're right. I've been so focused on the progress of the staff that I forgot to reflect on my own journey. Perhaps I needed this reminder. Dr. Brooks gave him an understanding smile. It's easy to forget, especially when you're leading the charge. But don't underestimate the power of your story. Lucas, the staff looks up to you not just as their boss, but as someone who has experienced what they're trying to overcome. They need to see that even you have had to confront these challenges. Lucas took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. He realized that he had been carrying the burden of his past alone. But perhaps it was time to share it with his team. They needed to understand that change was not just a directive from above but a journey they were all on together. Blank. Blank. The next day, Lucas gathered the staff in the hotel's conference room for a meeting. He had been holding regular check-ins with them to discuss their progress and address any concerns. But today felt different. There was a palpable tension in the air as the employees settled into their seats. Sensing that something important was about to happen, Ethan and Sophia sat near the front, exchanging curious glances. They, like the others, had been working hard to adapt to the hotel's new standards. But the intensity of the journey had taken its toll. They were eager for guidance, for a sense of direction in the midst of the upheaval. Lucas stood at the front of the room, his posture calm and steady. He took a moment to look around the room, meeting each person's gaze with a quiet strength. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice carrying a gravity that drew everyone's attention. Today, I wanted to share something with you that I don't often talk about. A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. It was rare for Lucas to speak about his personal life. And the staff leaned in, curious and attentive. As many of you know, I didn't grow up in the world of luxury hotels and opulent surroundings. He continued, my background is humble. I was raised by parents who worked hard to give me a chance at a better life. But it was a life where I often felt judged and overlooked. The room grew silent as Lucas recounted some of the challenges he had faced, moments of prejudice. Instances where he had been dismissed or treated unfairly simply because of his appearance or background. He spoke with a vulnerability that few had seen in him, and his words struck a chord with every person in the room. Those experiences shaped me, Lucas said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. They made me resilient, yes, but they also made me realize the importance of creating a place where everyone is treated with dignity. That's why I built Hotel Royale. Not just as a place of luxury but as a place of respect. But we can only achieve that if we all commit to this journey together. Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat as he listened. He hadn't known this side of Lucas. Hadn't realized the depth of his commitment to the hotel's values. In that moment, Ethan saw Lucas not just as his boss but as someone who had faced similar struggles and who was now working tirelessly to prevent others from experiencing the same pain. Sophia, too, felt a surge of understanding. She had been so focused on her own challenges that she hadn't considered the weight Lucas carried as the leader of the hotel. His openness reminded her that they were all part of something bigger than themselves. Lucas looked around the room, his gaze unwavering. I know that change is difficult. I know that some of you may still be struggling with this journey. But I want you to know that I am here, walking this path with you. We are all part of this hotel's legacy. And together, we can make it a place where everyone feels they belong. When he finished speaking, the room was filled with a heavy silence. Each person was lost in their own thoughts, reflecting on Lucas's words and on their own experiences. After a moment, Ethan raised his hand. Mr. King, thank you for sharing that with us. I think I speak for everyone when I say that we're committed to making this vision a reality. Lucas smiled, his gratitude evident. Thank you, Ethan. That means more than you know. Blank. Underscore. Blank. As the weeks passed, the staff continued to work on themselves and each other. Lucas's story had inspired them, reminding them that this journey was about more than policies and training sessions. It was about creating a place of respect. Not only for guests but for one another. Ethan found himself embracing his role with newfound purpose, engaging with guests and staff alike with a warmth that had once felt foreign to him. Sophia, too, began to approach her work differently, seeing it as an opportunity to make a difference rather than just a job. And Lucas, after confronting his own memories and doubts, felt a renewed sense of clarity. The road to change was long, and the challenges were many, but he knew that together, they could create a legacy worth leaving behind. By the end of the month, Hotel Royale was more than just a luxury destination. It was a symbol of growth, unity, and resilience. And as Lucas watched his team flourish, he knew that his journey and theirs had only just begun. The night of the charity gala arrived with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The event had been planned months in advance. A luxurious affair designed to showcase the best of Hotel Royale and raise funds for a global children's foundation. Lucas King saw this gala as the perfect opportunity to unveil the hotel's new ethos of inclusivity, respect, and unity to an audience that could amplify their message. The grand ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in warm, golden light, casting a delicate shimmer over the elegantly decorated tables adorned with fresh white orchids and silver candlesticks. The scent of fresh flowers filled the air, mingling with the soft notes of a live string quartet positioned in the corner. Guests arrived in tailored tuxedos and evening gowns, filling the space with a sense of opulence and grace. The atmosphere was lively, yet beneath it all was a tension that only the staff could feel. Ethan and Sophia, now seasoned with weeks of intensive training, stood at the entrance greeting guests with a poised professionalism. Both of them were nervous but determined, aware that tonight was a crucial moment not only for the hotel but for their own personal growth. Lucas had entrusted them with high responsibilities, a sign of his belief in their potential, and they were resolved to meet his expectations. As the first wave of VIP guests began to mingle, Lucas observed the event from a distance, quietly assessing the team's performance. He knew that despite the preparations, the real challenge lay in maintaining the values they had worked so hard to instill. Tonight, they were not just showcasing the hotel's luxury but demonstrating that true hospitality was rooted in respect and equality. Blank. Underscore. Blank. As the evening progressed, the staff handled the high demands with grace and efficiency. Ethan moved through the crowd, attentive to guests' needs, and Sophia coordinated with the kitchen staff to ensure each dish was served promptly and elegantly. There was a palpable energy among the team, a shared sense of purpose that kept them focused. However, it wasn't long before the first challenge of the night surfaced. Toward the back of the ballroom, a minor commotion began to unfold. An elderly couple, dressed in simple, modest attire, had entered the room quietly, clutching their invitation with slightly bewildered expressions. They had won a ticket to the gala through a charity raffle. Unaware of the event's lavish nature, their presence stood out, drawing stares and whispers from other guests, some of whom cast disapproving glances. Ethan noticed the couple immediately, his instincts alerting him to their discomfort. He approached them with a warm smile, ignoring the murmurs around him. "Good evening, and welcome to Hotel Royale," he said, his tone sincere. "My name is Ethan, and I'm here to assist you with anything you need tonight. We're delighted to have you." The couple's expressions softened, visibly relieved by his kindness. The woman, her voice barely above a whisper, said, "Thank you, young man. We didn't realize, we didn't expect all this." She gestured to the opulence surrounding them. Ethan gave them a reassuring smile. "You're here to enjoy yourselves, just like everyone else. Let me guide you to a table where you'll be comfortable." With a gentle, steady hand, he led them to a table near the center of the room, away from the judgmental glances of others. He even took a moment to introduce them to a few friendly guests. helping them feel more at ease in the unfamiliar setting. From across the room, Lucas observed the interaction, pride welling up within him. Ethan's genuine warmth and inclusivity had diffused what could have been an uncomfortable situation, reinforcing the very principles they had strived to instill. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, a different crisis was brewing. Sophia was overseeing the service timing when one of the waitstaff came rushing in. A look of panic on his face. Sophia, he whispered urgently, we're short on the main course for the last few tables. Somehow, we miscalculated, and the backup stock hasn't arrived. Sophia's heart skipped a beat. But she maintained her composure. She quickly calculated the options in her head. There was no time to order more. And the event was in full swing. Taking a deep breath, she signaled for the head chef to come over and shared the issue with him. Together, they brainstormed a solution. They would prepare a beautifully plated vegetable risotto, using the freshest ingredients they had on hand, as a substitute for the remaining guests. Working swiftly, Sophia coordinated the kitchen team, ensuring that the new dish was crafted with the same care and presentation as the original menu. She personally oversaw each plate, adding final touches before they were carried out to the waiting guests. When the risotto was served, a few guests expressed surprise at the unexpected change, but Sophia's calm confidence and the dish's exquisite presentation quickly reassured them. Her ability to think on her feet and adapt under pressure was a testament to the growth she had undergone since the beginning of their journey. Lucas, who had been informed of the situation by one of the servers, felt a surge of respect for Sophia's quick thinking and leadership. Blank. Underscore. Blank. As the evening drew on, the tension that had initially filled the air began to ease. The staff moved with a quiet confidence, handling each guest with genuine attentiveness and warmth. The presence of Lucas King, subtly monitoring from a distance, added to their determination to make the night a success. Yet, the night held one final test. Toward the end of the evening, a particularly influential guest, a wealthy investor with a reputation for being difficult, approached Lucas with a complaint. The man was displeased that his table had not been prioritized for service and that his requests for additional wine had been delayed. His tone was loud, drawing the attention of other guests, and he seemed intent on making a scene. Lucas listened patiently, his face calm as the man vented. When the investor finished, Lucas met his gaze with a quiet strength. I understand that your experience tonight may not have met your expectations, he said evenly, and I apologize for any inconvenience. Our staff has been working tirelessly to ensure that every guest feels welcomed and respected. The investor scoffed, crossing his arms. You think an apology is enough? Do you have any idea who I am? Lucas's response was steady. Yes, I know who you are, and I appreciate the support you've shown to our establishment. But here at Hotel Royale, we treat all our guests with equal respect and consideration. I hope you can understand that we are committed to making everyone feel valued tonight. The investor's face softened slightly, caught off guard by Lucas's composed and respectful tone. The outburst he had hoped would intimidate Lucas into prioritizing him had instead been met with a calm insistence on equality, subtly reminding him that wealth did not entitle him to preferential treatment. After a moment, he nodded stiffly and walked away, leaving Lucas to breathe a quiet sigh of relief. Blank. Underscore. Blank. As the gala wound down, the staff began the process of clearing tables and helping guests exit. Exhausted yet exhilarated, they exchanged tired but satisfied smiles, knowing they had risen to the challenges of the evening. Lucas gathered them in the ballroom once the last guest had departed. The team stood in a loose circle, their faces a mixture of relief and pride. He looked at each of them, gratitude evident in his expression. I want to thank each one of you for your hard work and dedication tonight, he began, his voice warm. You handled every challenge with grace, integrity, and a commitment to our values. Tonight was more than just a successful event, it was a testament to the progress we've made as a team. He turned to Ethan and Sophia, acknowledging their individual contributions. Ethan, your kindness toward our guests exemplified the respect we aim to show everyone who enters our doors. And Sophia, Your quick thinking under pressure reminded us all of the importance of adaptability and teamwork." The team broke into applause, celebrating the night's achievements. For the first time since the transformation had begun, there was a sense of unity and pride that transcended individual roles. They had not only served an event but upheld a vision that went beyond luxury and prestige, a vision that made every guest feel like they belonged. As they began to leave, Ethan turned to Sophia with a tired grin. "You think we'll have more nights like this?" Sophia laughed, shaking her head. "I hope so. It's exhausting, but it feels worth it." Lucas stood back, watching as his team dispersed. Their spirits lifted. He felt a deep satisfaction that their journey toward change was no longer his alone. It belonged to each person who had committed to making Hotel Royale a place of genuine hospitality. The gala had not only tested their resolve but solidified the foundation of a new legacy, one that Lucas knew would last far beyond him. Carried forward by those who believed in its purpose. The morning after the charity gala, the atmosphere at Hotel Royale was subdued yet bright with the quiet confidence of accomplishment. As the early sun bathed the lobby in soft light, the staff went about their routines, each member moving with a sense of purpose and pride that hadn't been there before. There was no denying it, the hotel had changed. And the people within its walls had, too. In the days that followed, Lucas met individually with each team member who had been pivotal in the transformation. Eager to recognize their progress and discuss future roles. It was time, he believed, to grant each person the opportunity to take ownership of the hotel's renewed values. Lucas's first meeting was with Ethan, who had become a symbol of resilience and empathy since his initial missteps. Ethan entered Lucas's office with a mixture of humility and pride. His posture relaxed yet respectful. "Ethan," Lucas began, gesturing for him to sit. "I've watched you grow over these past few months. And I want to acknowledge your commitment to our mission here. You've shown a depth of understanding and kindness that not only aligns with our values but also elevates them." Ethan smiled, grateful for the recognition. "Thank you, Mr. King. It's been a journey, but I feel like I've finally found my place here." Lucas nodded, his expression warm. "You certainly have. I'd like to offer you the role of lead guest relations manager. Your responsibilities would expand to training other team members on inclusivity and empathy, setting the standard for how we treat our guests. What do you say?" Ethan's face lit up, his eyes widening with excitement. "I'd be honored, sir. I'll do my best to make sure our guests always feel welcome." With a firm handshake, Lucas confirmed the promotion, proud to see Ethan take on the role with renewed purpose. Blank. Blank. Sophia was next, and Lucas was eager to speak with her about her future. Her composure and quick thinking during the gala had saved the event. And Lucas wanted her leadership to extend beyond one night. "Sophia," he began as she took a seat, "you've become an invaluable member of this team. And your ability to stay calm under pressure is exceptional. I think it's time we elevated your role here." Sophia tilted her head, intrigued but slightly uncertain. "What do you have in mind, Mr. King?" "I'd like you to take on the role of operations supervisor," Lucas proposed. "You'll oversee the day-to-day management of events and coordinate with all departments, ensuring that our values are present in every interaction and detail." Sophia's face softened as she considered the offer. She had never imagined herself in a leadership position, but the idea of having a hand in shaping the hotel's future excited her. "I accept," she replied, her voice steady and full of resolve. "I'm ready for this challenge. And I promise to uphold everything we've worked for. Blank. Blank. Over the next few days, Lucas continued to speak with staff members, offering promotions, creating new training programs, and initiating discussions on long-term goals for maintaining their commitment to inclusivity and respect. Each person he spoke with left his office inspired, feeling seen and valued in a way they never had before. However, one meeting still weighed on Lucas's mind. Brandon, the head receptionist who had been suspended, was due to return for a final conversation with Lucas. Despite his past mistakes, Brandon had shown genuine remorse and dedication in attending every training session and working hard to confront his biases. When Brandon entered Lucas's office, his usual arrogance was gone. replaced by a quiet humility that spoke volumes about his transformation. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. King," Brandon began, his tone subdued. "I know I made mistakes. And I take full responsibility. I don't expect forgiveness, but I do want you to know that I've learned from this experience." Lucas studied him, appreciating his sincerity. "Brandon, we all make mistakes. And it's what we do after that defines us. You've put in the work. And you've shown a commitment to change. I believe in second chances. And I'd like to offer you a path to redemption." Brandon's eyes widened with hope. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust and the respect of my colleagues." Lucas nodded. "I'm reassigning you to Guest Experience Ambassador. Your role will involve direct interactions with guests, ensuring they feel welcomed and valued. It's an opportunity for you to show that you can embody the values we now stand for." Brandon swallowed, gratitude evident in his expression. "Thank you, Mr. King. I won't let you down. Blank. Underscore. Blank." As Lucas continued to guide the team, the hotel began to gain a reputation beyond its luxury and amenities. Guests commented on the warm, inclusive atmosphere, and word spread that Hotel Royale was not only a place of elegance but also a place that treated every guest with dignity. The impact of the hotel's transformation rippled beyond its walls, inspiring other businesses to reflect on their own values and the treatment of their customers. Lucas received letters and emails from business owners and hospitality professionals seeking advice on how to implement similar changes within their establishments. One afternoon, Lucas received a call from Eleanor Pierce, the CEO of Kingsley Enterprises, who had been deeply involved in the hotel's reform. "Lucas," she began, her voice warm with approval, "I've been hearing incredible things about Hotel Royale. The board is impressed. And there's talk of expanding our new approach to all our properties." Lucas felt a sense of pride, knowing that their hard work had sparked something much larger. "Thank you, Eleanor. This wouldn't have been possible without the dedication of the entire team. They've risen to every challenge." Eleanor's tone softened. "You've done something remarkable, Lucas. You've proven that luxury and equality can coexist, and that a single individual's vision can reshape an entire institution. The board and I will be visiting next month to discuss the expansion plans." Lucas felt a wave of gratitude, realizing that this journey had exceeded his expectations. The hotel was now a beacon of hope, a place where people from all backgrounds could come and feel respected. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The day Eleanor and the board arrived, the hotel was a hive of activity. But this time, the atmosphere was one of calm confidence rather than nervous tension. Lucas stood by the entrance, welcoming Eleanor and the board members with a handshake and a smile. He led them on a tour of the hotel, highlighting the changes they had implemented, from new guest engagement protocols to the ongoing diversity and inclusion training sessions. The board members were visibly impressed, not only by the elegance of the hotel but by the warmth and respect that radiated from every interaction they witnessed. When the tour ended, Eleanor addressed the staff, her voice filled with pride. "Hotel Royale has become a leader in our industry, not just for its luxury but for the respect and dignity it shows every guest. This is a model we intend to replicate across our properties, and it's thanks to each of you that this transformation was possible." The staff erupted in applause, their faces alight with joy and pride. They had weathered challenges, overcome biases, and emerged stronger, united by a shared commitment to excellence and humanity. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Later that evening, as the staff gathered for a small celebration in the ballroom, Lucas looked around the room, feeling an immense sense of fulfillment. He raised a glass, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "To the Hotel Royale," he began, "and to each of you who believed in our vision. This is more than just a hotel, it's a place where people can feel valued and respected. We've built something special here, and I am incredibly proud to call each of you my team." The team raised their glasses, cheers filling the room as laughter and celebration followed. They had come a long way, facing uncomfortable truths and making lasting changes that would shape their futures. And as Lucas looked out over the room, he knew that their journey had only just begun. The foundation they had built would carry forward, influencing not only their hotel but the entire industry. The Hotel Royal had truly become a sanctuary of luxury, equality, and respect, a place where every individual, regardless of their background, could find not only comfort but a sense of belonging. As the celebrations from the evening faded and the ballroom emptied, Lucas stood alone, taking in the quiet elegance of the space he had worked so hard to transform. The journey at Hotel Royal had been more than a professional endeavor. It had been a deeply personal mission to redefine what luxury hospitality could and should represent. What started as a vision to create a more inclusive, respectful environment had blossomed into something larger, a movement that resonated not just with the hotel's staff and guests, but across the entire industry. The transformation of Hotel Royal was not without its struggles. There had been resistance, moments of self-reflection, and difficult conversations that forced everyone, including Lucas, to confront their own biases. But these challenges had been necessary steps toward progress. Each setback was met with resilience, each hesitation with renewed determination. The staff, once fragmented and guided by outdated ideas of exclusivity, had grown into a cohesive, empathetic team, united by a shared commitment to treat every guest as a valued individual. For Lucas, the most rewarding part of this journey was witnessing the growth and transformation within his team. Ethan, who had once struggled with assumptions and bias, now stood as a model of empathy, using his experiences to guide others and shape a new culture of hospitality. Sophia's calm leadership and adaptability had proven invaluable, and she had flourished in her role, helping redefine operations to make inclusivity a natural part of the hotel's daily rhythm. Even Brandon, whose mistakes had initially threatened his career, had shown a true commitment to change, learning to prioritize understanding and respect in his interactions. As Lucas walked through the now empty lobby, he thought of the guests who had begun to fill the hotel's suites once more. They came from all walks of life, each bringing their own stories, and each receiving the respect they deserved. Hotel Royal was no longer just a luxury hotel, it had become a sanctuary. A place where every person felt a sense of belonging, regardless of their background or appearance. It had become a beacon of what was possible when a team committed to change, letting go of prejudice and replacing it with kindness and understanding. The impact of Hotel Royal's transformation was felt beyond its walls. The local community had taken notice, and other businesses looked to the hotel as a model of responsible, people-centered hospitality. Word spread of the Royal's commitment to treating each guest with dignity, setting a new standard that others sought to emulate. In time, the board of Kingsley Enterprises announced that it would extend this inclusive model to its other properties, creating a ripple effect of change across the company's portfolio and beyond. Lucas knew that this journey was only the beginning. True change would require continued vigilance, a commitment to uphold the values they had worked so hard to establish. There would always be new challenges, new biases to confront, and new ways to grow. But Hotel Royal was prepared. Its foundation now built on a legacy of respect, dignity, and empathy. Lucas trusted his team to carry forward this vision, to be ambassadors of this change, and to inspire others by the way they served each guest. With one last glance around the hotel's majestic lobby, Lucas felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. The Hotel Royal was now everything he had dreamed it could be, a place of both luxury and humanity. A sanctuary that would welcome all who walked through its doors with open arms and open hearts. As he walked out into the night, Lucas carried with him the knowledge that together, they had built something timeless, something that would inspire and endure. The Royal's journey had not ended, it had only just begun. A legacy of change that would live on in the smiles, kindness, and grace extended to every person who crossed its threshold.